Yeah, dude. Well, I made all my money out in Jersey practically.
You did?
Washington Heights, Manhattan, Dominicans, and in Jersey, South Jersey with the Gindaloons, with the Italians.
That's where I'm from.
South Jersey.
Yeah, I'm from West Deptford.
I know these little dumpy towns, Atco.
Oh, thanks, Dumpy.
Yeah, Atco's a dump.
Yeah,
Shout out to all my Atco people. You know who you are. Atco's a it could use a once over. But there was a lot of money there back then.
I didn't realize you were okay.
Yeah.
I need to learn more about this. I didn't realize you were doing so much of it like in person too. What my understanding was that you were mailing a lot and had connects that way.
I was shipping it out here. I was shipping it to Philly.
All weed, right?
All weed. I mean, we sold other stuff when we were small time, going hand to hand, but we blew up in the game with weed, and we just got in on the best time. I mean, it was like the podcasting. It was just we hit the timing was unbelievable. So yeah, it was our main markets. You know, we shipped it. We had people in Maryland. We had people in Ohio.
Who's we?
Me and my Cody.
Okay.
My crimey,
Cody.
my crimey, whose name I won't speak just because he works for the Trailblazers. He's got kids. He's a stand-up guy. You know, and he never got caught. He got out of the game.
Oh.
Yeah, I bought him out of his.
So he wasn't
end.
a Cody.
Well, no, you're right. He didn't go down. He was my
Okay.
crimey. And and what, you haven't had black guys on? You have Method Man on here. Imagine you. Would you laugh at Method
Red Man, but
oh,
close
that's
enough.
right. That's right. That's
Jesus.
right. I can't tell them apart. I can't tell them apart. So I ended up buying him out of the business, and I guess I myself, we were in the streets forever together, but I myself am the one that really took that risk because we'd heard about
You
how
bought
much-
him out?
I bought him out of the business.
How does an underground buyout work?
I got 10 grand, and you're moving on. I could tell he was sick of it, and I was like, I'm about to take this shit federal. That's how we used to talk about real risky shit. Like, we're about to go federal. I'm gonna be mailing packs all over the country, and I'm gonna get rich or I'm gonna go to jail.
Right.
Or my plan was okay, even if I go to jail, I'll be rich. I'll still be a millionaire. They won't find the money. That's what everybody's fantasy is that, but it usually doesn't pan out.
Because people
that
don't
way.
get out. They don't stop.
Exactly.
They say, I'm going to stop, and then they're like,
Exactly.
I got to go a little farther.
Like, 2 million has a nice ring to it. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So, but yeah, we were shipping weed out to the Philly, South Jersey area, and the Bronx and Washington Heights, and we had people in other markets. But yeah, these are just. I mean, it was wild. Like, it just gobbled. Just this invisible hand just gobbled up all this weed. It's just wild.
So how young were you when you first started? And I would imagine it was just like doing regular neighborhood drug deals when you were doing that.
Yeah, probably 16.
Okay.
It was 2002,
Now, when did you graduate a step up?
2005, 2006, a little bit, and then you work your way up, but then you take maybe you lose all your money, you get robbed, or whatever. There's a drought, you can't get any drugs to sell. I mean, the drug business is, even back then when things were good, it's not an easy buck.
No.
That's a
No, it's
myth.
hard work.
It's hard work.
It is
dude.
hard work. I'm
Yeah.
dead serious.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've seen it up close.
So, but it wasn't until 2009 that I started shipping, and that's where the big money. That was where all the work, the years I had put in, paid off.
So you're out of college at that point. What kind of connects did you have?
They
Had you
were-
actually made connects to Mexico at that point?
Well, with Mexicans, but in California.
Right.
So this is when they're still there. They're still there big time. They're actually out in the open now because weeds, you can grow essentially unlimited amounts of weed, and they won't take you to jail. They'll just raid your pot farm and then take all of it, but they'll write you a ticket. But back then, this was when they were up in the mountains in Mendocino, Humboldt, Southern Oregon, and if you could get to them, they had the best price. You couldn't get something cheaper than that. And the outdoor weed from California and Southern Oregon probably is still the best weed in the country. Outdoor weed. It was commercial. So the East Coast, the Midwest, they loved that shit because it looked really good. It almost looked like indoor weed. What you guys would think was indoor hydroponic grown weed, but it was outdoor, and it just moved. And you could buy it low and sell it in bulk low, and everybody was eating.
The Mexicans you were going to from California, though, obviously were these places you're talking about, all the ones that were connected to the cartels. Like they funded it and started it up.
And obviously, like they never tell you the truth. Not that I really asked, but these were guys from these were mostly dirty. These are just laborers, and there was one guy who spoke a little English. He was the young kid, and he spoke for everybody. That was working in the field, right? Because that's what they would do. They would send guys up, bosses from Durango, Sinaloa. These are the places where this is how the Mexican cartels were invented, was from pot growing in the 60s.
Yeah.
This was the genesis of everything that goes on now just comes from pot.
Yes.
It's crazy to think about that. But so they would send guys, a group of guys to go grow it. And then the one guy with the LA Dodger cap on and the gold chain who spoke a little English, and he was the guy that was the liaison with all of the dealers and the traffickers like me who would descend onto that area and pick up and then go back to their markets.
How'd you get connected with him?
It took a long time.
He knew what you were doing?
It took a long time. At first, we were buying weed from white guys in Southern Oregon, and these were like, laid off electricians, ex-hippies, people that grew, but it was more chill. Like you could maybe get like 200 pounds a season from them. A season would be like October through whenever you sell it all. So maybe the spring.
That's a lot of weed.
It's a lot of
200
weed.
pounds is a
It's
lot.
a lot of weed, but it leaves you with like 4 or 5 months where there's no weed.
You would go to it that fast.
Of course. Even back then, even before I was shipping it, we would still sell 50 pounds a month. So 200 gets snapped up like that. They'd all be accounted for. And if you had a big group from like the East Coast, like, adults, sometimes they would come in and they'd say, we'll take all of it. And then the harvest would be gone. And then you'd be in the drought. Kids don't understand that. There was like a time when there was no weed to smoke or sell. So and people would get robbed and you'd start selling coke to try to make up for it. It was bad. So that's why when you got to the Mexicans, they always had the most. So we just threw, paying people, right, for connections and introductions. And, finally met this one guy who connected us. And if he would go out of the picture sometimes, like he would go back to Mexico after the harvest. But then he would always leave me a contact for, another guy who was coming up. That's kind of how that worked.
Did you have a real job at all during this time
When I was small time, yeah.
Yeah,
dude. I would deliver pizzas. I had a pizza route, but I had bags on me. I was hitting licks.
They always have
as I was selling pies. All pizza guys are selling weed, dude.
Have you ever seen Danny's episode with this pizza guy?
No.
Oh, it's incredible. Go watch it.
Okay.
But, side note, so you're delivering pizzas and selling weed door to door.
I was, I had all kinds of little jobs, but I would always get fired because it was just a distraction. It was basically just to like show my parents that it was to prove income. You know what I mean? Even though they knew what was going on the whole time.
Oh, they did?
Yeah.
That was going to be my next question. Like, what did they think you were doing?
Dude, I would come home for the summers in the middle of like in college. You go back to your parents' house for June, July, and August, and my dad would every summer he'd be like, dude, I just found like 30 grand in your backpack. What are you can't stay here. I'm a lawyer. You can't
He's a lawyer.
You can't live here if you're doing 30 grand. Also impressive, but you gotta go. So I would get kicked out every summer. They're like,
where would you stay? Like your friends' houses?
Yeah, I would go stay with like a friend who had his own place or whatever, It was exciting. It was exciting. You felt like it was like adult business.
Yes.
As when you're still kind of a kid. At 20, 21 years old, you're still a fucking kid.
You're at that age, I'll speak for myself, you're absolutely retarded still. So you're like, thank you guys for checking out this clip. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe and hit the like button on this video. It is a huge, huge help. And if you'd like to check out this clip's full podcast episode, that link is in the description below or right here. And finally, you can follow me on Instagram and X by using the links in my description below.